Okay, let's dive straight into this. Welcome to today's Explainer, where we're going to be looking at one of the absolutely most fascinating intersections of sports, money, and global diplomacy in modern history. We are unpacking a huge central mystery here. How exactly did a 25-year-old athlete transform from just being a spectacular football player into a crucial geopolitical asset? I mean, think about it. We're talking about a guy who kicks a ball for a living, literally redefining what it means to hold state power today. It's a real game-changer of a story that completely reshapes what it means to be a sports superstar.
Now, to truly get a grip on this, we really need to set the scene. Picture this. The date is February 27th, 2024. The location? The Élysée Palace. Now, if you don't know, this is the official residence of the French president. It's the exact same palace where heads of state decide on wars, where multi-billion-dollar trade agreements get hashed out, and where the entire future of a nation is charted. And walking into this incredibly serious, cinematic setting, completely surrounded by diplomats and heavy security, is Kylian Mbappé, dressed to the nines in a tailored suit. It's just such a striking anomaly to see him there, you know?
And you have to look at the guest list for the state dinner, because it was completely surreal. He's being personally welcomed at the door by the President of France, Emmanuel Macron, the First Lady, and the Emir of Qatar. This wasn't some casual social gathering, and it definitely wasn't a sports awards banquet. This was a massive, high-stakes state dinner. And the context makes it even heavier, because at that exact moment, information was already leaking to the press that Mbappé had told his inner circle he wasn't going to renew his contract with Paris Saint-Germain and was bound for Real Madrid.
So, caught on camera as he approached Mbappé, President Macron almost jokingly says, "You're still going to cause us some problems." It sounds like a lighthearted, casual joke between friends, right? Well, actually, scratch that. It was far from a joke. It was a really heavy, calculated acknowledgement. Right there, in that room, Mbappé wasn't just a striker. He was a national symbol, a highly strategic piece on a board that extends way, way beyond the football pitch.
So, let's move into Section 1, PSG as a state project.
So for a long time, PSG was really just a very rich club trying to buy its way to respect. But in 2011, everything shifted. Qatar Sports Investments, which is an arm of Qatar's sovereign wealth fund, bought the club outright. From that very second, PSG stopped being just about football. It became a full-blown state project. Over the years, they brought in massive stars. But by the time Messi and Neymar started making their exits around 2022 and 2023, who was left holding the entire project together? Mbappé. He didn't just become their best player, he became the undisputed focal point, the absolute face of the club, the city of Paris, and frankly the entire French league.
Moving on to Section 2, the presidential intervention.
Okay, so in 2022, Mbappé was practically on a flight to sign with Real Madrid. That's when the president of France requested a private meeting with him and told them, quote, "I want you to stay. You are very important to the country. You are the symbol of France." Just pause and think about the sheer level of this interaction for a second. This isn't a general manager. It's not a coach. It is the sitting head of state pleading with a football player to stay in the country. This literally proves beyond a shadow of a doubt that keeping him had absolutely nothing to do with tactics on the field or his weekly salary.
Now, you might be wondering, why on earth would Macron intervene? Well, because he has a deep historical understanding of the sheer power of football. I mean, he was right there in the locker rooms in 2018 and 2022, hugging and dancing with the players. He knows for a fact that having the best player in the world, who also happens to be French, playing right in the capital of France generates a kind of international prestige that money simply cannot buy. Without Mbappé, the French league, Ligue 1, really struggles for global respect, often unfairly getting dismissed as a weak, uncompetitive farmers' league. Mbappe's presence alone brings in the big sponsors, commands global attention, and maintains the league's relevance. So losing him to Spain, that meant losing major status.
Which brings us to Section 3, the informal ambassador.
You see, the relationship between France and Qatar did not start with a football club. It's like a giant puzzle. The ties have existed for decades, deeply rooted in military, economic, and financial agreements. So when you put the pieces together, having the biggest French player playing for a Qatari club right in the heart of Paris effectively transforms Mbappé into an informal ambassador. He acts as this direct bridge between a Western world power and a highly strategic Middle Eastern ally, an ally that is actively looking to improve its global image amidst a lot of Western criticism.
And this brilliantly illustrates the real stakes of that relationship. £8.5 billion. Yup, billion with a B. Shortly after that totally surreal state dinner at the Élysée Palace, it was announced that Qatar would be investing this massive sum into French startups and funds by the year 2030. To put that into perspective, it proves that the dinner wasn't just a friendly social send-off for a football player. It was sheer high-level diplomacy, with Mbappé sitting right at the center of the table.
Let's look at Section 4, entering the political arena.
So around this time, France was facing early parliamentary elections, which opened the door for sweeping shifts in power. And the players actually took a stand. Mbappé, alongside his teammate Marcus Thuram, publicly stated that the extremes were at the gates of power, and they simply wouldn't align with those values. Well, the pushback was immediate. Jordan Bardella, who was the leader of the conservative RN party, responded by arguing that multimillionaire players who are disconnected from everyday reality have absolutely no right to tell citizens how to vote. The debate absolutely exploded. And suddenly, the captain of the national team was making front-page headlines entirely for domestic politics rather than his performance on the pitch.
And the fallout from that was incredibly revealing. Let's trace the steps here. Step 1, the French Football Federation, the actual governing body of the sport in the country, immediately demanded political silence from the national team. But step 2, Mbappé wasn't having it. He and Antoine Griezmann directly confronted the president of the federation, making it perfectly clear they would not accept being silenced. And step 3, the federation backs down. And listen, they didn't back down out of some political conviction. They backed down because Mbappé is simply too big and possesses too much immense leverage. He's quite literally too powerful for his own national federation to confront him.
But the absolutely crucial point here is that Euro 2024 wasn't just an isolated incident. Look at his track record. He previously called for an end to violence during the 2023 protests in France following the death of Nahel Merzouk. He's publicly supported COVID-19 vaccination campaigns, and Macron himself even publicly praised the player for having a rare awareness of the weight of his words. So it constantly begs the question, how much is Mbappé speaking as an individual citizen, and how much is he speaking as a curated symbol of the state? Either way, it's a massive recognition of true influence.
Finally, Section 5, bigger than the club.
To keep him in Paris back in 2022, he signed a contract worth a staggering 170 million euros per season. That is a figure that literally eclipses the GDP of some small island nations. But it wasn't just the money that caused a controversy, it was the power. Frightening reports began emerging that Mbappé had actual tangible influence over sporting decisions, coaches, and transfers at PSG. Now, he denied it, and the club never confirmed it, but the mere fact that the media was heavily reporting it showed he was brushing up against the ultimate golden, unwritten rule of football. No player can ever be bigger than the club. He came dangerously close to crossing that line.
And as Mbappé finally makes his definitive, long-awaited move to Spain, the European outcry over how states are bankrolling clubs and distorting the entire market has really reached a boiling point. Joan Laporta, the president of Barcelona, summed it up perfectly. He said, "This is the effect of a club having a state behind it." Top executives are openly complaining that players are basically being held hostage by sovereign wealth, forcing state presidents to intervene in the transfer market.
Which leaves us with this final, lingering thought. As we look back on this whole shebang, from the Élysée Palace to multi-billion-dollar investment funds to the fierce clash over domestic elections, we really have to ask ourselves, when exactly did football stop being just football? And why do we keep pretending it hasn't changed? Mbappé is a generational talent for sure, yes, but he's also an idol, a tool, and a very powerful symbol. As this explainer clearly shows, in Kylian Mbappe's case, the most important game of all is permanently played off the pitch. Thank you so much for joining me.